Yes, yeah, yeah. All right, welcome. Good evening, everyone. Is your phone off? Let's Hi, this is Zoe Sarah. You can go ahead and turn it off quickly. With Across the Diaspora, it is Tuesday, means you are joining us for another Tuesday of having a conversation. I'm really excited about this evening because this should be a pretty good conversation we'll be having on a really important topic. We're streaming live on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. My guest this evening, our brother Tremikus, he's live on Instagram. I don't know if you have to say anything special to your fans.
No, peace family. Glad y'all came on. Let's go. Let's
All,
do this.
all right, we are ready. We are ready. So, before I get started, just some housewarming. Housewarming. What's it called? House rules. Not housewarming, house rules. No, it's not even rules. Please just because this is going to be such you don't know, but I know it's going to be very much a captivating, interesting, engaging conversation. Go ahead and share this link. Share the posts online with everyone that you know because I know they're going to find this interesting, particularly seeing that we know that this is a topic that's going to be very important to us. All right. So go ahead and do that. If you're on YouTube, welcome. Go ahead, like and subscribe. You don't like on YouTube, you just subscribe on YouTube. You can like the video. Yes, I'm getting used to this. All right. So go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel. So that we can really generate movement on the channel and this discussion. So thank you everyone for joining. I must add before I say anything, you do know that I'm into fashion. That's part of what I do, and I'm excited to share that this outfit that I'm wearing, the top that I'm wearing, is actually from my country, Guyana, right? So, and a designer, Miss Veronica, said this to me through my mother. So I'm representing Guyana today, tie dye. So welcome. And the piece is right here in the marketplace among a few other pieces. So if anybody's looking for jewelry, this is one of the examples. So Miss Darlene, if you're watching, I will put it back on the mic. And thank you. I bought it for tonight. Um, so yes, I just had to mention that I'm representing different brands this evening. So that's the camera. I gotta make sure I'm not looking down into the laptop. All right, so I will get started this evening by first having you introduce yourself because I know there are going to be quite a few people, apart from those who are your Instagram followers, who do not know who you are.
So first of all, thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
I've been looking forward to being on this show. I know how serious you take with the work you're doing. I have to say before I introduce myself that I'm also wearing one of the wonderful pieces from Sarbo's collection. Zoe, this is yours.
Yes.
So thank you very much
Yes, it is.
for
Yes, it is.
allowing me to style and profile tonight. My name is Brother Tremikus Muhammad. I'm the chair of the Phoenix Local Organizing Committee for Justice or Else. Been doing community organizing for the last 30 years, a member of the Nation of Islam, a member of the community, a father, a husband, all of those things. So I'm just happy to be on the show and ready to get into this.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So where do I start? Well, you mentioned the Nation of Islam, and I must add, and I think I've told you this before. My introduction to the Nation of Islam was back home, right? Listening to speeches by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan played on our local television, and I'm really grateful for that because it is really given me initial introduction to the Nation of Islam without even realizing it. I knew the man, but not the nation. Yeah. It's just okay, not the nation, not the nation. I knew the man, but of the man, but not of the nation, right? And so my initial introduction to the Nation of Islam was through my studies of the Black Power movement in college and Malcolm X. Okay. And so that was my initial introduction to the Nation of Islam. Because we do have Islam in Guyana, but I don't think we have a Nation of Islam.
We used to.
Present there? Prior to when? 75?
75.
1975?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, yes.
Around that period.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. And then after college, I started doing community engagement work, and then I started having conversations with people, and people seem to have their own interesting opinions, varied opinions of the nation and Honorable Farrakhan, and I found it quite disturbing because I fell in love with the man through his speeches and what he said, and just clearly this is someone who is passionate about his Black people as a whole, and passionate about the community. And so coming here and hearing people their disgruntled opinions about the nations and what may have and may not have happened, and basically dismissing it altogether, I found it quite perplexing because I'm like, is he not like what is his intention, right? And so from after a while, I'm like, yeah, I cannot, I don't understand. So that's my introduction to the Nation of Islam, and then I met you. I'm like, oh, okay, they're cool people. They are. Right. They are. They're not bad. um, so, but we're going to move forward with our topic today, right? Our topic: fatherhood, manhood, and masculinity. And you are. He's nervous. I don't know why. He talks all the times. So, okay, guys. So, Brother Tremikus and I are friends, and so we go at it with each other all the time. So don't mind us. And so before we get into that, you're a father, right? Your husband, your father of a few children.
Yes, I have.
So if you can talk about that, because I want to go into what does fatherhood mean to you.
Okay, so I am the father of 5 children.
5 children.
I had to count them. Right? I had to count them. Is it 5? Yeah, it's 5. So I have 5 boys.
Yes.
I don't have any girls. My oldest son is 22 years old. My youngest is 8. Right. So these are my precious jewels. I'm also a husband. I've been married for nearly 20. Well, we've been together for 20 years. Married for 19. So just a wonderful experience for me and a learning experience. I think we'll get into that today, but it's been a huge learning experience for me. I'm doing better with my 8-year-old than I did with my 22-year-old.
Yeah.
I'll say that. So that's been my life for the last 20 years. Fatherhood, husbandhood, if that's a word. And I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, well, and let's talk a little bit more about the role of fatherhood, right? The importance of fatherhood, because I heard someone mention I've heard it a few times, right? That the reasons why we're talking about Black men today, hence the topic, right? There's blame that goes to where it's men, but mostly women, right? As to the reason why there's so many troubled Black men, it's because of lack of fathers in their home, in their lives.
Yeah.
And so with that backdrop, for me, I'm asking you, what in your opinion is the importance and significance of the role of the father in the life of the child?
It's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
We have to remember, and I'm sure your audience knows, that the condition of the Black family as it is by design. It's not by accident. And it was on purpose that fathers were removed out of the home physically, but even deeper, fathers were removed out of the home mentally. And when I say that, I mean the emasculation of Black men, and I mean all the way back into slavery and colonialization. We've been emasculated from our role. My teacher, I was listening to him today, he was Farrakhan, and he talked about fatherhood. And he said the duty of a father is to take your children farther than you went in life, or that you're going in life. What does that mean? It means that you have to have vision. It means that you have to have a mission. It means that you have to have something that you're productively working on to include your children in, right? So that in your passing as a father, you pass on that vision, you pass on that goal, you pass on that work, and your children take it further. Well, the Bible, for those who study the Bible, says where there's no vision, the people perish. So with the absence of Black fatherhood in its truest sense, there's no vision for our community. So if there's no vision for our community, what do you produce? You produce chaos, you produce destruction, you produce violence, you produce what we see today, which is the breakup of our family, the breakup of our community. So no father, no community.
No community.
No family.
Yeah.
No vision, right?
Yeah.
And the carrying of that weight.
So definitely impacts the community, right? On at a broad level, right? The vision and their direction of the community. How does it, would you say, affect the development of the child? And so I will give my personal experience in that, right? Because I've been having conversations with other individuals, and even I think my with my my family, about the fact that I really have not recognized how valuable the father is in the home until, I became a mother myself, right? And it really, really bothers me because the mantra that we hear a lot is mostly from Black women, not even just Black women. We have a society that celebrates single motherhood, right? And women saying, I'm a mother and a father, right? And there's this strong support of the woman being able to handle that responsibility and give it. I understand it because it's difficult, but I don't see that being balanced with the reinforcement of how valuable the father is in the home. And I'm learning that right now as we speak, because I'm co-parenting, right? And every day I am truly appreciative that I have, someone, my son's father, who is very much, playing that role in his life, because I don't know if I'll be able to raise, the boy that I have on my own, right? And so how do you, so how do you speak to the fact that that value is removed out of the conversation as a community?
It has to be retaught. I can't take credit for my work, my walk in the fatherhood on my own. Right?
Yeah.
My father was not around.
Okay.
My mother, for the most part, was my mother and father. My father struggled with alcohol addiction. He struggled with drug addiction. And this was the example he gave me. And I thought about it today, to speak to your point. I thought about it today. When I joined the Nation of Islam, I said to my father, I said, Minister Farrakhan is my father. He's more of a father to me than you have ever been. Now, I regretted that as I got older. That's very painful. Yeah. And I was blessed on my father's deathbed to let him know how I felt about him. But I bring that point up to say this. Why did I say that? Because I had not seen an example of manhood. I had not seen an example of fatherhood. Yeah. This is critical. So when you talk about this push, right? Well, we have to realize that for at least 40, 50 years, since the 70s, there's been a push to remove Black fathers from the home, right? And to push the idea and the agenda that Black fathers are not important. If the government is providing the food through the food stamp, if the government is providing the subsistence through welfare, if the government is paying for the education, if the government is providing the job, then what value does a man have if he can't provide food, clothing, and shelter for his family, right? The factories being taken out of the inner city. I grew up with Black men who couldn't read. So it wasn't about getting a college degree. It was about being able to move into these industrialized cities and get a job in the factories. When these factories were taken away, then how do these men have the ability to take care of their families, right? Yeah. So you raise up a generation with the mindset that this man is not valued, because what's the most valuable aspect of a man, right? Well, one of the most valuable aspects of a man is to be able to provide, to be able to take care of his family. Yeah. If he can't do that, he loses value. Never mind the conditions that were created to get to that point. Okay. So if that's what's been happening by design, it's no wonder now, after 50 years of pushing this idea and this agenda, that you have a generation, you have a society that's saying there's no value in a Black man, we can do it on our own. Those are the critical things to look at. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I and in hearing you saying that, forgive me, I'm gonna just go back to my place of origin, right? I'm thinking about in the Caribbean, and if anyone who's from back home who's listening, if you can, um, you know, l- make a comment about this. If there is a tangible, or a real understanding of the importance of the father figure in the home, right? Or is it just innate within the fabric of the family and the community? So if you can, I know we understand the value of the family unit, but specifically, why is the father important? We know why mother is important. We know the mother's the nurturer, right? We know the mother's the caretaker. We know the mother, the woman is the one who gives birth and then gives life and all that. We know that. But I don't think there is that understanding, that appreciation of the male. And so if there's anyone listening from back home who can make note on that point, I would appreciate that. And so, with the father not being in the home, right, and not being present, what impact does that have on the growth of the child, of the boy specifically?
There was a study that was done.
Yeah.
And this study studied the effects of poverty on young black men. And in this study, they found that it contributed, and I'm paraphrasing all that they talked about, but it contributed to mental instability, right? It contributed to stress. But get this, it also contributed to heart disease, high blood pressure.
So it has medical impact.
Medical impact.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, let's go back. The father provides vision. It's something. I was watching an interview, and I think it was Damon Dash, and he was talking to the brother that hosts the Breakfast Club.
Chamberlain?
The other one.
I don't know.
But the other brother.
Yeah,
I forget his name right now. But he said this to him. He said, "Do you think that your son is happy to see you going to a job every day and that another man is your boss?"
No.
I said that's interesting, right?
It's a job.
Listen, though, what he was saying is that you could get fired at any moment. Your income can get cut off at any moment. You don't have, and what he was saying to him is that you don't have the ability to provide a living for your family outside of what avenue another man opens for you. This is critically important because the standard of black fatherhood and manhood cannot be equated with any other standard of black fatherhood and manhood in the world. Why? Because when you look at us systemically, we were taken out of the position of leader, visionary, nation builder, provider. So in order for black men truly to reclaim fatherhood, then he has to become that sole provider for his women and his children to completely protect them, completely answer their needs. This is really the standard that has to be raised. If that standard is not raised, then what happens is each generation resorts back to the same thing. Because look at it. We're not dealing with I said 50-year, but it's not a 50-year-old problem. It's nearly a 600-year-old problem. Ever since we had contact with our oppressors on the continent, up until this point, we're still dealing with the same problem because the first thing he did was to destroy black manhood. Two things can occupy the same space at the same time. The man is a ruler. Yeah. He's a king. Yeah. See? Yeah. He can't occupy that space if someone else is occupying it. And that's the space he has to go back to with his woman and his family. That's critical.
So within the society that we live in, how it's constructed, right? It's dominated by a culture that is not ours, right? How is that going to work, right? Like how are you going to have?
You have to do two things.
Okay.
One, you have to create your own. Two, you have to separate. These are two critical points, but they're related. You can't be a man in another man's house. Well, my son turned 18 years old, and he goes into his manhood. He can't be a man in my house. So it is with the society. You can't be a man in another man's house.
Ethnically, culturally,
economically, politically, in every arena. Because you are always going to be dominated by the ideas of the man who rules. Now, the man that rules the dominant culture is your oppressor.
Yep.
So how does he ever allow you to be to the position where you truly rule, where you truly can be a man? See, and this is the deep-rooted psychological problem that's going on in our community. Because we got to ask ourselves the question, and why I'm taking it this route is because we keep going through the same cycle and having the same conversation over and over again. It's something that we are missing. We're college educated. We have PhDs. We sit as CEOs over some of the most powerful companies in the world, right? But yet we still are having a conversation about Black fatherhood, manhood.
Well, it's because we live in a racist society, right? Yes. So we live in a racist society where there's a system that is set up, right? The structural system that's set up to, in every possible way, keep down and hold down, the Black family and the Black man, right? And so because we're in that system, right? I guess the system is not going away anytime soon.
Now check that. Now you're saying something heavy.
Okay.
We were in a barbershop discussion, and almost, as you say it, I almost cringe. We were in a barbershop discussion, and the brothers were saying exactly what you said. The system is it. And one of the sisters said this. She said, I understand. She said, it's true. She said, but when I hear my men talking like this, she said, it sounds so weak. It sounds weak. See? So here's a man, but he's constantly having to say, somebody else won't allow me to be a man. How can, at the deepest level, how can a woman respect? You don't hear it from the Chinaman. The Chinaman said, hey, you're going to mistreat me? I'm going to make myself a world power. Even the Indian. If you look at the Indian, his freedom, 50 years, same as you go into South Africa and some of the African nations, their independence is 50 years old. But the Indian established his own, he said, I can't have another man telling me what to do. Yeah. He established himself as a world power. But you don't see that with us on the continent, and you don't see that with us in the States. This is critical to understand. Because now you're getting into the deeper aspect of what fatherhood and manhood is. Yeah. I can't sing you father, son, when you are still a slave. What is a slave? Malcolm said, you mentioned Malcolm. Malcolm said for the Untitled Muhammad that the slave is one who the circumference of his activity is governed by the diameter of his master's wishes.
Okay, wait. Sorry, my mom. Say that again. The circumference of his activity is governed by the diameter
of his master's wish.
Oh,
he can't go no further than
he's allowed to go.
Now, how you gonna be a man?
Yeah.
At the root of the word man is mind. When you and let's go deeper. When you talk about man, the idea of using the word man to describe a physical male, that's a new concept. It used to be when you talk about man, you talk about man, woman, and child. All three were included. So when you talk about a man, you talk about his full responsibility. When you talk about a man, you're talking about mind. The origin of the word man is what? To think. So if you don't have the ability to think for yourself, to get outside of this box, then there has to be a complete rebirth. Now, it's hard, because that means we got to separate. That means we got to start our own government. That means we have to create our own institution, our own
If you're going to be allowed to. If you're going to be given the space.
Here's the part.
You're going to give you the space.
Yeah, but see, you cannot have the mentality of allow. There were a group of men here in this country. They were called the founding fathers of the United States of America. And the founding, I'm getting whether you or your, everybody might not agree, but the founding fathers of this country decided that death was better than oppression. Yeah. And they say, give me liberty or give me death. Yeah. They no longer wanted to live under the oppression of the king and the crown. Okay. Haiti decided the same thing.
Yep.
And there are many other of our nations and people that decided the same thing.
Yeah.
Black people in America, particularly black men in America, have to make a decision. And that decision has to come down. That decision, the end result of that decision determines whether or not we exist for the next 50 years in the same condition that we're in now, or that we change that condition all over. And we don't just have to make it in America. We have to make it throughout the diaspora. It makes no sense for Africans to be running out of Africa over the Mediterranean Sea trying to get into Italy for freedom.
Yeah.
You're leaving your whole continent to go somewhere where you know you're going to be mistreated and oppressed.
Yeah. And speaking of the diaspora, right? So as you're speaking, I'm literally thinking about what's going on in Guyana right now, right? So, Black Guyanese, African Guyanese are really very much in an oppressive state right now, by a government, right? That's, of East Indian background, East Indian descent. And the alternative, the answer, right, that has been vocalized for many years is power sharing. And there are examples of power sharing, because Guyana is very much a very racialized society also. However, it's a winner take all system where whichever party which is based on race, whichever party wins the election has full control not only of the political system, but the economic system also, military control. Well, the actual people in the military are Black, but they still have control over them because they're in the hands of the state. So there is this conversation of the answer to that is power sharing, where you have, a political system that is shared by these two entities. Why's your face like that? All right. So you have a political system, and I think there are examples of power sharing happening, but these other countries, it's homogeneous societies for the most part, like in Zimbabwe. But so you have examples. So yeah, so that's what is being proposed as an answer. Is political power sharing. So you have the political power, being run by both entities, so that each ethnic group feel as though they have equal share in what in the spoils of the nation.
No, I'm not an expert.
I'm not. It's not gonna happen in America. I know it's not gonna happen in America. So it's not
I don't
about.
think it can happen in Guyana. Let me say this.
Okay.
Dr. King, I'm gonna say two things. Dr. King made a very critical point. Dr. King said when what he noticed about integration, particularly in the public school system, he said in America we are integrated without power. Okay, that's number one, right? So now when you talk about power sharing, then it means that we both have power.
We both have power. Yes.
But what's being described to me is an oppressive system, and then you're saying to me,
yes,
I'll give you power. Yes. That's not real power. Secondly, the Indian, and you might get, I don't know if you're in Guyana, you might get banned in Guyana. But you can't convince me that the Indian of India, who looks at dark-skinned Indians as being less than human beings, is now going to go into Guyana and look at Black Africans in Guyana and say, you know what, you're my equal, you're my brother, and I want to share power with you. That's not real for us. But it's the trick, right? It's the same thing that was done with neocolonialism, right? When Europeans start seeing the rebellion of blacks in the diaspora, rather than be victims of revolution and completely be kicked out of the country, they say, no, we'll give you power, right? Yeah. But then you still have the Franco-African nations who have to pay a debt to France, who have to funnel their money through French banks before they can get it themselves. They have to take a loan out of their own money. Yeah. So this is the kind of tricks that I play. Again, going back to manhood. Yeah. See, a man can't be a man in another man's with another man in power unless he's willing to do what's necessary to remove that man from power. This is dangerous, but it's real.
Yes. So in speaking to manhood, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. What if we have this epidemic at one point, I don't know if it's so much the same, right? Of there not being, the father within the home, within the, the community, right? What is or was the example or framework of manhood and masculinity that young men had, right? To use so that they can have that example, right? Um, what are the reference points?
So you had this is powerful. I'm glad you brought that up. You had your Stokely Carmichael.
Okay.
You had your Malcolm X's.
Okay.
You had your Fred Hampton. You had your Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad. You had even you talked about Minister Farrakhan.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're dealing with a wise enemy, he knows how to do two things. He
Mm.
knows how. There's a picture of Fred Hampton when he's killed. I've never let my son see that picture.
No.
And I asked myself the question, why would you show us have you ever seen a picture or drawing of Abraham Lincoln shot out dead laying they don't show you that.
No.
They show you him sitting powerful in the monument, right? Still exuding power.
Yeah.
But when they show you Malcolm, they show you Malcolm laying with holes in his chest, lifeless. When they show you Martin, they show you Martin laying lifeless on the balcony with other black men pointing, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that these are examples of systemically and culturally and idealistically how they've taken the image of powerful black men and destroyed that image. So not only did you destroy images, but then you take men like Minister Farrakhan and you destroy their reputation. Yeah. Why do you do that? Why do you destroy the reputation of Elijah Muhammad? Because he was making men. Yeah. Muhammad Ali, Minister Farrakhan, all of these Stokely Carmichael that sat in the home of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. After Dr. King met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he came back and gave the speech, the mountaintop speech. And in the mountaintop speech, he talked about boycotting, right? He talked about taking our money out of the American system and creating our own economic system. See? So these powerful black men who've given black men an example of what black manhood is, being willing to even die for what they believed in, are the ones they snuffed out. And if you talk to most of us today, I put a post up on my page. And if you talk to most black men today, they say, man, well, what's going to happen to us if we stand up like that? Yeah. But that was the reason why they took slaves and hung them up in trees. They whipped them, they raped them in front of their family, emasculating them to say, if you're rebellion, if you don't do what we say to do, this is what's going to happen to you. And it even instilled in black women to raise black sons to be safe, but not free. There's a difference between being safe and being free.
What's the difference?
The difference between being safe and being free is that freedom may be uncomfortable and it may rob you of your safety. Yeah. But ultimately, freedom will give you the peace that you're looking for. It'll give you the future that you're looking for. It'll give us the family that we're looking for. It'll give us the idea that we're looking for and keep yearning for generation after generation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, not I think, I with conversations that I have, it's the fear of black men is tangible.
Yes.
Right? And which breaks my heart because I'm like, you want to be considered the leaders, the kings, right? The men of our community. And then but when it comes to really standing up and doing what is necessary, right, for the freedom and the peace that's really needed, it seems as though too many of us are not willing to make that sacrifice.
We have a lesson in the Nation of Islam, and it talks about the fear of the black man.
Yeah.
And it says, why does he fear now that he's a big man? Right? It said because he was taught to eat the wrong food. What does that mean? Well, what are the ideas that are being put in the minds of black children? What are the ideas that are being put in the minds of black boys? And when they grow with these ideas.
Yeah.
So my mother, now I'm different, man. My mother said to me, and this is the power of the black woman when she understands. My mother said to me one day, she said, son, if I hadn't made you tough, you wouldn't have survived.
If she made you tough.
But yes.
Okay.
Okay, now check this out.
Okay.
When you raise black boys to be warriors, to fight, to allow no one to oppress them, that's a different type of child.
Yeah.
This is why there's a target on the back of young black boys who are quote unquote rebellious, quote unquote trouble, right? Because these type of black children will buck the system.
Can't afford that.
Right?
Yeah.
So they reward that. They lift it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be intelligent. I'm not saying that we should not excel or succeed. But what I am saying is that when they talk about the school to prison pipeline, the targets of the school to prison pipeline are young black boys and girls,
that's going to,
who rebel and buck the system. Yeah. It's not that they're what they did. I was listening to a scholar the other day, and he said, and it really bothered me. He was talking about how the government had went and worked with a group of youth in Chicago, and that these group of youth were just proved to be scholars and so highly intelligent. Mm-hmm. Well, they were the vice lords. The vice lords of the gang.
Oh.
The gang.
Oh, okay.
Right? And what bothered me about the conversation, mm-hmm. because of the kind of life I come from the streets, and I wasn't out there too bad, mama. But I was out there, right? Uh-huh. And it was no surprise to me that these brothers and sisters who are out in the street are highly intelligent.
Yeah.
Right? Malcolm didn't have a degree. What college did Malcolm go to? Malcolm debated scholars from some of the most prestigious colleges in the world and beat them. So the idea that we are unintelligent because we are in the streets is only an idea that's sold to us by our enemy. Because our enemy knows mm-hmm. that we are highly intelligent, yep. and that if you give us room to run, then not only will we run away from him, then we'll create a world opposing him and then come against him. Now they talked about this. I got to go to the Bible real quick. Tell me about, because you know how.
No, you go ahead. No, I just want to acknowledge the comments. Mm-hmm. Akila, I see your comment. I'm reading as he's speaking. So the interview with DJ Envy, he looks at the Breakfast Club every day, so he knows.
Who was that?
Phil.
Okay.
Victoria, she's agreeing to one of the points. She has a question: how can we direct these strong black rebellious to rebellion towards tangible objectives?
Ooh, so here's the thing. Now I gotta go. The Nation of Islam and others have been a great example, because I have to speak. I was the rebellious one.
Yeah.
I used to compete, Victoria, with my peers to see who can get the lowest grade point average.
The lowest grade point average?
The lowest grade point average.
Okay.
Not the highest, the lowest. Now imagine that. How do you compete, right? That's how rebellious we were. I had a teacher. My mother would tell you, I'm using myself as an example because I represent so many others. Mm. My mother would tell you that it was a teacher mm-hmm. in my high school mm-hmm. that created a test so difficult that she knew every student would fail it just to see if I would pass it. Mm-hmm. I came to school with no books. I played, I did whatever I could in class but the assignment. Mm-hmm. When she gave me the test, I passed the test. Every other student in the classroom flunked the test. And she cried talking to my mother. She called a meeting with my mother, and she didn't understand why I wouldn't apply myself.
So why were you rebellious?
Because I hated the world and what it was.
Oh.
I hated it. As I said, looking at what it had done to my father and what was happening in my community, I had no love for this world, even as a youngster. I didn't understand it fully, but I didn't. So I was very rebellious, and all my peers were.
Yeah.
Okay, long story short.
Yeah.
When I came into the Nation of Islam at 16 years old, I got a dose and example of manhood. Mm. Men who were fathers, men who were husbands. Men teaching younger men, 16 years old. My mentors were older men, 40 years. At that time, I was 16 to 30 years old, right? But they were teaching me, giving me the example. This is what you do for your family. This is how you provide for your family. This is what manhood is. This is how you treat women, right? These are all the things that were being taught to me. Mm-hmm. So what we have to do is and what did they do? They pulled me out of the environment that I was in.
Yeah.
And put me in a separate environment. This is critical. And in that environment, they begin to retrain, reteach, and re-educate. Reprogramming. So if you go, what we have to do is we have to pull them out of that environment. If that means we got the scholars, we got the PhD. How come we don't have our own schools just for boys on a mass scale if we got all these educators? We have to educate our own children. We have to understand that we're in dire straits. We don't have the what do you call it? We can't coast through this. We can't hope through this. We have to be very intentional. We can't pray through this without action and activity coming out of our prayer. Creating institutions of learning. Creating, I can't do that. Okay, we'll create mentorship programs. Create programs where we can sit down with and then here's the other thing, don't be afraid of them. A lot of times when we look at these young, we are afraid of our own children. It doesn't make sense, right? We can't be afraid of them because if you go to them with love, if you go with them to them with care, they are going to respond to love and care because they don't get it from anywhere. And if you're sincere, they're going to listen to what you say and follow you in whatever direction you do. So to answer your question, Victoria, we have to create institutions, mentorship programs that we are now able to re-educate, retrain, reteach our own children. And they will come out of rebellion. They're not rebelling against us. They're rebelling against the system. Now the rebellion becomes rebellion against us when we try to push to them the idea of the system that they have completely rejected. They're not made for that.
Hi, brother. I'm Gaston. He just joined us from YouTube. Peace. Another member of the LOC. Before we move forward, last question. I think he mentioned it, Victoria. Are Black men missing the duality of being provided environments that support their strength, but also give them a safe space or a soft space to land?
Yes.
They're missing it. So what do they have right now?
That's a good question.
So
a good question. Okay. If we don't create it, they don't have it. Now, don't get me wrong. There are places, the Nation of Islam, but not everybody wants to be a Muslim, right? You have our brother Bilal. I think you're gonna have
Bilal. Yes,
they have the mentorship program. There are things that are out there. But
outside of the family, right? But
we have to create those spaces and more of them. Right? Because if you're in a space and it's not there, you got to create it. You got to make it. You know, a lot of our problem as a people is that we're comfortable.
Too comfortable.
And because we are comfortable, we live in this idea, in this system of an illusionary reality, right? It's like we live in the Matrix. We got to come unplug and see life for what it is, and then act accordingly.
And I think the unplugging is happening. Right. And again, I will, we're waking up, but, and I'm referencing and thinking about Guyana also is that because we're so comfortable, right. We're so used to the system that was created for us that it has to take a serious nudge, and a serious punch in the gut for us to really be triggered and motivated and inspired to move, right? And in a way, I know I may come over callous sometimes with some of the things that's happening back home, but I tell my family sometimes, it's like, hey, if we're comfortable with the way things are, right? And so, it will take some really dire, crazy situations and conditions to force our people to feel the need and the desire to come out of that comfortability, right? And create what is needed so that we can, create that safe space and institutions, to elevate us as a people and create that answers that we need as a people. Because nobody else is going to do it for us. Nobody else, but nobody.
Why would they?
Well, we think people, we're gracious towards people.
But let me tell you, when I say why would they, we support in our lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, lack of resources that we control. We support the world.
Yeah.
Why would you go to the continent and educate and raise the people up and make them free. Why would you do that, right? So that they can now say, wait a minute, you got to get out of the Congo. You can't have our resources no more. We want control of that. you can't have our gold and our diamonds no more. We want control, and we want to use that to build. So why would anybody outside of us want to come and raise us up back to consciousness? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So when you say that, that's a powerful statement, and it's so true. If we don't do it, nobody else will. But I will add, because it's not in their best interest.
Yeah, it really isn't. And so how does that speak to the masculinity in the male, right? Right? Because I feel that's the overarching. No, there's another word I want to throw at you that I didn't mention. We haven't mentioned this yet.
Okay.
How does masculinity play into that? Now we see, right, there being an open attack, as far as I'm concerned, on masculinity on the Black man in particular, right? And you add that on top of the emasculation, on top of the years of oppression, the fear that's already there, to really remove that urgency, that the warrior spirit, that that ability to really do what is necessary to take the community and the people out of the condition they're in. What to you is masculinity, and what is it? How is it derailing us from being and doing what we need to do, and who we need to be?
Masculinity is power and authority in action. Okay. So for Black men in particular,
hey Melissa,
we cannot have masculinity without divinity.
Okay.
Our power comes from our spiritual connection to self.
Yes.
Because that's our origin.
Yeah.
So when you talk about emasculation, when you talk about this attack on Black male masculinity, what you're talking about is an attack on our spirituality, an attack on the source of our power and the source of our authority. There is a reason why. Think about this. Some of the most powerful leaders in the history of our people have been spiritual men. Malcolm was a minister. Martin was a minister. If you read the writings of Marcus Garvey, this was a spiritual man. Keep going down the line. Nat Turner. Nat Turner read the Bible, and the Bible told him he should kill white folks in order for Black folks to be free. That's the history. It is our connection with divine authority that gives us back our power, because that's the root of our power.
Even in the diaspora too. The Haitian Revolution, spirituality.
Thank you. Why they're so afraid of hoodoo? That when you reconnect us back to our divine spiritual self, connect us back to our nature, there is no ruling us. Because the Black man is the natural ruler of the world. He's dominating in basketball. He's dominating in football. He put him in golf. He dominates in golf. He put him in tennis. What is that telling you? Is it just that we're athletes in our physical bit? No. Basketball is mathematics. It's science. It's geometry. It's algebra. Go down when they're hitting at that tennis racket. It's mathematical equations that are going into that, right?
Goal.
So what is truly showing you in sports is the power that we have in science, in math, in technology. It's the reason why when you look at the stoplight, we invented it. When you look at the peanut, we came up with 100+ inventions of the peanut. When you look at the washing machine, we invent all of these things. Okay, let's go deeper. Astronomy comes from us. Okay, astrology comes from us. The numbering system comes from us. We built those pyramids in Egypt. We are the masters and the rulers of the world. So keeping us blind, deaf, dumb, ignorant to the knowledge of ourselves, the knowledge of our true masculinity as world rulers. Because our enemy, when Napoleon seen that black nose on the spink, he blew it off. Why? Because we put a black man's head on the body of a lion and set it in the middle of the desert to show the world we rule. And one day our rule will return. Okay, but how does it return? It's our reconnection with divine masculinity. This is why when you see black men trying to connect power and authority, you see this type of oppressive type of masculinity.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give an example.
We're gonna go to there.
Let me give an example of this.
Okay.
Check this out. Masculinity, power, and authority. Well, is this something combined to me? I'm using this example for a reason for you in the audience just to listen to this. Is this confined to men? Masculinity is not confined to men. Okay. So then what are you talking about? I got to use this term for lack of a better one. I hate this term, it was an invented term, but toxic masculinity. If Hillary Clinton would have got in the office, would it have been different because she's a woman? Remember, Hillary Clinton was the one that orchestrated the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi. Hillary Clinton was the one that helped orchestrate the law that put many black men in prison. Hillary Clinton and her family are the ones who helped keep Haiti oppressed in the condition that it's in. Mm-hmm. I'm using an example to say this, that if masculinity is not coupled with spirituality, then you get power and authority, but it shows up as oppression.
Well, balance with femininity. Well, balance with femininity. I know this is a conversation about men today.
Yeah. But I didn't mention femininity.
And it's wholesomeness.
I didn't mention
it's the balance with the femininity.
But we ain't on that. But
we're not talking about that today.
But spiritual and divine masculinity is naturally because that masculinity understands that femininity comes out of it, and it comes out of femininity. Yeah, they are twins. They're not opposites of one another. They're twin powers. Yep. So that's why when you see in the ancient civilization of black people, when you seen male authority, you seen female authority, not behind. You seen it side by side. Because that authority, that masculine and feminine authority, works together and it balances. But that's why I say spiritual. So, spiritual, because spirituality in it of itself is a feminine quality, and it's a creative force. And this is why when the masculine energy comes together with the feminine energy, energy and the physical, it produces life.
So in all that to say, so we're saying masculinity is power, right? Power and authority. In action. Okay. So with is there such a thing as toxic masculinity? Because I've heard that it is a term created by a white man. According to a white man, there's toxic masculinity, right? But masculinity used immaturely, prematurely, right?
It's what do you really call toxic masculinity? Is not really masculinity.
So this it's not masculinity.
No, see, this is the game. This is why we have to be very clear that was the invented term, because in essence, it's an attack on black male masculinity being called toxic masculinity, and then you create a whole school of thought around it, right? Yeah, I get it, right? But toxic masculinity is not masculinity at all.
Okay, I was about to say, like, well, what do people? So basically, activities, right? And I don't want to say personalities or things that people attribute the term to as being toxic masculinity is just being. It just means that there is a vacuum, a loss of, or not being any presence of masculinity, right? Masculinity not being present.
Because you got to go back now, right? Remember we talked about man being mind.
Yeah.
Mind or man meaning to think.
Yeah.
And to think for the whole. See? So if you're masculine, what do you think for? You think for man, woman, and child.
But if you're not,
then you only think for yourself.
You only think for yourself.
That's not manhood.
Okay.
So it's not masculinity.
So the word I'm throwing out to you right, is patriarchy,
Mm.
right? Um, you know, why we're having this conversation is twofold, right? Why this conversation is so important, because we see two things happening within our community right now: the violence that's being meted out against Black women, right? We have to talk about that. And the conversation that is happening in certain spaces within the Black male community, right? We call it the manosphere. And so in listening to these conversations within this particular space, right, I feel as though me personally, it's men, right, who are crying out, crying, who are displaying, right, the result of everything that we talked about so far. And we haven't spoken of, right? The oppressive society that we're a part of, right? The anger, the pain, the trauma. And I see these conversations because it's spaces where men are talk about their frustrations, mostly about Black women, but they're vocal about their frustrations, but I do not feel as though it's being done in a balanced, wholesome way that really puts into perspective the reason why we are the way we are, right? And so for me, the question for you is, do you see patriarchy as having or playing a role in this, in I don't want to use the word, this is not what misogyny, but how does patriarchy, right, the construct of patriarchy really impact and affect, the mindset, and the actions of men void of masculinity, and the ability to be the man that they should be or desire to be?
Well, when a man is unproductive, it's frustrating.
Okay.
And when he doesn't know the source of his lack of productivity,
Mm.
it's even more frustrating.
Okay.
When he's in relationship with a woman
Mm-hmm.
who naturally
Mm-hmm.
does not honor or respect unproductivity.
Mm.
See, so
Ladies, you hear that?
let's go real physical. Woman comes together with a man
Yep.
to produce.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she comes on a physical level.
Yes.
I want a child.
Yes.
We come together.
Yes.
We produce a child.
Yes.
A woman comes together with a man in the spiritual to produce.
Mm-hmm.
If that man does not know how to produce, then he loses that woman.
Mm.
I'm going real basic.
Mm-hmm.
But in his frustration, not understanding her nature, he starts to experience pain in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
He starts to, he can't find peace. She's constantly on him about his lack of productivity, his lack of ability to sustain a life, his lack of ability to provide, his lack of ability to da. And out of that pain, now he develops a hatred for women. So now it's justified in his mind. Because every time he's with a woman, he has the same experience. But the question is not, am I having the same experience because of me? It has to be something wrong with her, because the mind, psychologically, the mind could never be wrong. Our minds will always justify what we do to make us right. Yeah. Now put that type of mentality in a group, a spear, and then call it the manosphere. My brother, I probably lost.
Oh yeah, we're on IG too. I forgot.
Look. So what you are looking at is unhealed men. Well, now the woman oftentimes she knows her nature, but she don't necessarily. Somebody got to teach her what she's looking at, right? Because the Black woman has to always understand that the Black man is a man in need of repair.
And I don't think we understand that. I don't think Black women they understand that they need help.
Yeah.
But what does that look like, right?
Yeah. See, so then how do you, wow, how do you repair a man who's been emasculated for centuries? How do you now help him to return back to his power? Now I gotta introduce the nation again. You gotta put a whole nother class together for her. Because now she is you may not like this sister, but now when you're dealing with the black man, you in the repair business. You literally have to make yourself a man.
I don't agree with that.
I know you don't.
I don't agree with that.
But
I don't agree with that, because I think because of our feminine divine energy, and I think, well, first of all, we need to heal ourselves, right? Because black women are in the same space as the black men, right? And so the same frustrations through as a result of the larger societal issues, right, and our personal relationships with each other, right, we are creating hurt, for each other, balance. Right? So the woman is hurting too, and through her healing, because on a larger scale, black women are healing themselves, like they are doing the work, right? Through our healing, I think the black woman can be able to find the ability
check this
to
out. The black
help
woman,
the man.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Feminine energy is naturally healing energy.
Yes.
Energy.
Yes.
Now check this out. The black woman is healing herself. True. But then she reached a certain point in her healing.
Yeah.
And that point is the black man.
Yeah.
And that unhealed black man comes back and inflicts damage. Right? So when I say that, I'm not saying that the black woman doesn't need to be healed. Of course she does.
But you say she needs to be masculine. What do you mean by that?
I didn't say masculine.
What do you say she needs to be? Somebody help me.
You lost me. I didn't say masculine.
Oh, that's why I responded like that. Like she need her feminine divine energy.
Because no. Her femininity is the healing.
Yes.
Her healing is a reciprocal effect. It bounces. She heals, helps heal him. He heals, helps heal her. It bounces back and forth. But the role has to be played.
Okay.
And the dominant role, I might not like this because you've been carried away, but it's the reason why you carried away. I don't like how said that 75% of the work is with the woman.
I believe it.
The dominant role in our healing is going to be through the black woman.
So that's what you mean by the dominant, okay, the masculine role.
In that sense.
Okay.
And this is heavy now.
Yeah, that's a burden.
It's a burden.
It's a burden.
It's a burden. But the more she works on herself and she gets into her femininity, okay, is it natural for a woman to submit to the masculinity of a man? Well, tell them, say it out loud. Is it?
Okay,
so
we'll have that conversation.
Then I'll answer the question. It's natural for a woman to submit to the masculinity of a man. And it's natural when a woman is in her feminine self for the man to bow down to her femininity. See, it's got to be a healing process. We cool with separation from the
well, because there's such sensitivity right now in the space of certain men, we will remove the word bow.
That's a different.
First you have to acknowledge. First, no.
We're not removing that word.
No, we need to acknowledge though.
We're not removing that, brother.
Look, we're sensitive right now, right? We have ego. Not we as in me. I'm speaking on behalf of the men who are sensitive, right?
Well,
the fragility right now is, who does she think she is, right? Because
qualify it.
She's doing all this blah 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 blah. She needs to be in her space.
Oh, but yeah,
in her place.
In her place.
Well, then how are they bowing?
Well, what is her space in her place?
Exactly.
See, now I got to go back to my teacher. He said that God created himself. I mean, where did God come from? He said that after God created himself, he studied himself. And then he brought out of himself.
I'm going to respond to that.
He called the second self, and the second self he called woman.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the woman's place,
yeah,
her place is second only to God.
Mm-hmm.
And let me say this. My teacher pointed this out. He said, when do you see a man get down on his knees?
To propose.
Well, you beat me to the punchline.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
But it is true to propose, to recognize a sovereign or a king or ruler,
Mm-hmm.
and to pray.
Yeah.
My teacher said that if there was no God,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that would be worthy of worship is a woman.
Mm.
So then, if a man understands that, then he's not bowing to a lesser being. What he's doing is giving way to his feminine self, because we are two sides.
But we don't understand that, though.
Well, I'm teaching it. I'm giving the understanding right now. They got to. We have to give the understanding, because the idea to say, okay, we don't understand it. Of course, we don't understand it, but we have to be taught it. Otherwise, we have to ask the second question.
What's that?
How is this working out for us?
Our
current understanding is not producing the results that we're looking for.
No, we think we are, right? And the person is currently commenting. I see you. So without that understanding, right? Without that knowledge, right? The current knowledge and understanding is that which has been presented to us for generations, right? From slavery, right? The example that Black men have right now is what has been presented to us through the white dominant society. And that's the example or system of patriarchy, right? And so if that's our only framework that we're aware of, because this knowledge that you speak of is not there, right? So our framework is much more, is a framework that is presented to us through religion, right? That is taught to us in a Eurocentric way, right? And the white man's example of what the role and the position of the man should be. And so in engagements and the stuff that I read online, I see that many Black men are looking towards that outside of the Nation of Islam, right? They are looking towards that example to replicate, and therefore their frustration with the Black woman is because she's not submitting to that example that they see that the white man has, right? Which I think is unfortunate and scary. And so how can we create an alternative outside of the Nation of Islam?
Of course.
Maybe join the Phoenix LLC. But outside the Nation of Islam, how do we get back to that understand? Who else is teaching it? Because
I can go to my brothers in the Mayat.
And the where?
The Mayat.
The where?
Well, okay.
They don't know what that. I know what that is.
Let me.
Where they find this information?
Let me say this, and I hope your audience sees this clearly. You know, one of the most beautiful things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did is he taught us who the devil was. Right? Now, some may not agree. You love Malcolm. Malcolm said the white man is the devil. Right? Religion got it wrong. Religion got it wrong. Society has got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You can't follow a civilization that's fallen. So if you look at what the brother says, well, I want the woman to submit in the same way that I've seen white men in his society. Well, his society is fallen, and his woman is mistreated. This woman is not loved, even by him.
Yeah.
Even by him.
Yeah.
So then what we have to do as a people is we have to look at the example in front of us and ask ourselves, is it a good example? If it's not a good example, we have to go back to our own ancient original civilization to get an understanding and get our bearings straight. Remember, the first thing that they did was burn our books.
Yeah.
The first thing they did, listen, there was a slave, a senator, I'm sorry, when they were talking about the building of Howard University. This senator made a comment on the floor. He said, we have done everything. He was arguing against opening Howard University. He said, why should we open up a university for the Negro? He said that we have removed the every possibility of light from entering their minds. He said the only step now for us to go further is to remove the possibility for them to see the light. This is how they're talking about us. So when you talk about what is accepted and the examples that we're using, first thing that has to be realized is these are wrong examples. If they don't work for them, how are they going to work for us? Here's a man devoid of spirituality. He cannot see the woman as his equal. He can't see the balance of masculinity and femininity. He's looking at the woman as though she's beneath him. So it leads to the destruction of society, and the abuse of women is the destruction of society everywhere in the world. Show me a society that does not respect, honor, and uplift their women, and I'll show you a society that's in decline.
Oh, can we talk about respect? And I know I'm going to get eaten up after this. I'm seeing your comments, and I know who you are. Right? Respect. I've had this debate with the same individual who's posting right now, right?
I can't see what they're saying.
You can't see that. I don't. They'll have to type their name. I'm not gonna type their name since they're using not their account.
I can't see the comments at all.
Okay, it's okay. So I've had this conversation. Speaking of respect, right? So there's this new thing where, not new, I don't know. I'm now hearing about it, where respect is earned. And that bothers me to my core, and I think it's so dangerous and so scary. And I want because
You're right.
Okay, well, don't make me push back in your right.
You can have why they're right.
Okay, let me explain why it bothers me to my core first. All right. So I give examples of spaces within America, right? Back home. There's a tangible feeling. There's a difference in which Black men respond to Black women here in the United States than in back home, right? My girlfriends, there's certain clubs and spaces here in Arizona that we know if we go, we're going to be assaulted. We're going to be touched and groped because the men don't see the value in us. Right. And so in having conversations with certain individuals who are saying, respect, you don't, deserve respect. It's not. I'm like, that means that you are creating that space that allows men and give them the agency to treat women anyway, because you do not see, like, we don't go down the street disrespecting people because we don't know them. Right. And so for me, I think that is really scary. Now I'm done ranting. I'm going to say what you have to say. I think it's just dangerous.
I talked about this before. Respect. Read means again. Respect. Look.
Again, look. Okay.
Look again, right? So in a sense, they're right, but not how they think they're right. We have to take another look at the Black woman. If we take another look at the Black woman, who she is, what she's been through, and what she's done for our people, respect is natural. Let me even qualify it even more. If you don't respect Black women, but for one other reason, is that you came to the womb of a Black woman. The Black woman is our mother. She's the mother of human history. There's no great man or woman that's ever been produced in our people that did not come through her. So we have to take a different and separate look at our women and understand what I love about the teaching. And I know everybody, and I had to go back to my teacher. Is he taught us how to see our women correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to see her correctly.
There's a perversion in the way the black woman is seen.
Yeah.
And the black man, but yeah.
So now, if you see her correctly, now I've come down. I live off of Indian School and 27th Avenue. I've come down the street and see sisters out there prostituting themselves, and all that comes along with that. Mm-hmm. Now, do we disrespect her for that? Or do we understand that something has happened here?
Yep.
This woman is off. Because if you don't understand the abuse, if you don't understand the misuse, if you don't understand the conditions that have been created that produce a certain kind of black man and a certain kind of black woman, not only will you not have respect for black women, but damn, you won't have respect for black men either. There's a condition that has been produced. We have to understand the condition, the difference between the condition and the person. So now, when we talk about respecting the black woman, we're speaking to the root of who he is, not the condition that has been made. Because if you understand the root and the nature of who she is, then you respect that, and naturally she'll come up out of whatever condition that she's in. Naturally, the black man will come up out of any condition that they're in, because now you're speaking to the nature of them. The nature of the black man and black woman is divine. We are direct descendants of the creative nation. We are directives of God himself. That is our lineage. So if you speak to that, if you respect that, if you love that, if you treat that right, it will come up out of that condition and it will be something great. You didn't respect Malcolm as Detroit Red. You respect Malcolm because Malcolm got a teaching that brought him out of a certain condition that made you respect Malcolm X. Yeah. So when you talk about the earning of respect, we have to humble ourselves and understand the condition that our sisters have been put in, then treat them accordingly. And she'll come up out of that condition. Why would she come up out of that condition? Because then she'll witness a man. Yep. And her nature responds to a man.
We'll respond to that. We'll respond to that. We'll respond. But and because there's that missing of seeing us in our divine self, both sides, right? There's that thing that's happening right now.
Because you can't,
that visible tension that's happening right now.
You can't even love yourself if you don't see the black woman properly. You come from her womb. So if you looking at the womb that you came for and you cursing the womb you came out of because of the condition that she's in, how can you love you? And if you don't love you, then your response to the black woman is natural. You will beat her, you will kill her, you will abuse her because you don't love you. And when you look at her, you see yourself. How you gonna love something that when you look at it, it reflects you in your sick mindset and condition? This is what's happening to us. And this is what's being permeated, this idea and thinking in our community. We need a complete revamp of our thinking, complete revamp of our attitude, because we have literally taken on the ideas and nature of our oppressor and our enemy. So now we view ourselves and our people through the lens of our own enemies.
Through the lens.
Yeah.
Yep. And social media is not helping, right? Social media is not helping because there's a distinct separation. Why I decided to do this podcast and why I'm in in the fashion industry, in that space, because I recognize, right, that the people I'm surrounded by, right, the women that you and I know on a day-to-day basis, right, is completely separate and different from the women that is the imagery of the Black woman that is being fed to us, right, purposely, right. Look, the algorithm is a real thing. The algorithm is a real thing. So you have a cycle that's happening, right? You have the perpetuation of this certain culture, right, of this certain this image of the Black woman that's being pushed through the culture, and then you have young ladies who are lost and confused too, because we're lost and confused, right, who are attaining and adjusting and adapting to that cultural lifestyle, right, and so they're recreating that negative imagery that's been propped up, and then what, Black men respond to that, right? Oh, look, the Black woman. Oh, she's this, she's that, using the same language and the same, interpretation, right? And mislabeling. And I feel using that as fodder to redirect their anger and frustration on the woman as a whole, right? So it's, for me, it's a whole messy cycle that's happening. And we're not having that conversation like we're having now, to really have that separation and see each other at our core, and value each other as a core, so that we can get past that. It's hot, isn't it?
Yeah, they make me call. But listen, you know what's interesting about us as a people? We can recognize the conspiracy and the war in Ukraine, and we can go all over the world and recognize conspiracies, the COVID conspiracy, the vaccination conspiracy. But you know what we can't recognize? The conspiracy, the cultural conspiracy against us as a people.
Can't see it.
You believe that Beyonce is in control of her own image? You believe that Meg Thee Stallion or City Girl or any of these women, Black women that they portray are in control of their own image and what they put out in the world? Though you can go watch documentaries where MCs from back in the day would tell you, no, they wouldn't let me put out this because it was too positive. Lauryn Hill did a whole album that Sony didn't agree with, and she couldn't sing a song off the album in public.
But it's still our fault, though.
You see? So there is a cultural war. One of the weaknesses of us as a people is that we say we understand it, but we don't recognize that we are at war. And the woman in any war is the prize. Why is she the prize? Because she shapes the ideas, the thoughts, the direction of the nation.
Especially the Black woman.
He, what they say, he who rocks the cradle controls the whole world. So they understand that the Black woman, physically, spiritually, mentally, if you have control over the Black woman, the image and what's put out there of the Black woman, you can control the thinking of the entire world, but in particular, you can control the destiny of us as a people. If you believe you are at war, you have to understand that there are certain tactics and maneuvers that are being made. That if we gotta be able to look behind the veil and say, wait a minute, that sister is on a puppet string. She ain't controlling herself. I need to go after the puppeteer.
Yeah.
And I need to get her strings cut and freed from the puppeteer. And that's by giving her knowledge, wisdom, understanding of her own self, and then treating her accordingly. She'll break the strings and she becomes a new kind of woman. The fear of the world is that the Black woman will become a new kind of woman, because if she becomes a new kind of woman, then damn Black man, you become a new kind of man. And if she rejects this world, she'll raise children that reject this world, and they will be the warriors that bring this world down.
Yep.
From her womb. The ending of this current world and system comes out of her womb. The enemy knows that. You think that they were looking, that J. Edgar Hoover was looking for the rise of a Black Messiah? Think about this. This man was studying. He was studying scripture. He was studying prophecy. And he said, oh, wait a minute. The Messiah is coming out of Black people. Well, he named a few that were men that were already born. But he also had to understand that maybe he wasn't born. And maybe the Messiah that's going to end my world is going to come out of the womb of a black woman. And if he understood that, do you think he didn't start working on the black woman's womb? He didn't start working on your baby, trying to kill the Messiah like they did in the scripture even before the Messiah was born. See, we don't realize that the changing of the world comes through us.
Yeah.
Muammar Gaddafi was a threat, not just because he wanted the United States of America, Africa, and the gold standard, and all these wonderful things. But he said in his Green Book, he said that the changing of the world is going to come through the black man and the black woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they understand that, but we don't. They understand it. So in speaking to back to our community, right? Specifically, you can say the black woman not understanding her value. And that's going to be a different conversation, a different day, right? Mm-hmm. Not understanding the role she plays in all this and how important, how important she is in this entire dynamic. Mm-hmm. But the black man really not understanding it. And so, as you said, why don't we go towards or direct our frustrations at who's pulling the strings, right? The puppets, we're the puppets, but who's pulling the strings? Mm-hmm. That's not happening. And I think it's
because the black man got to understand who's pulling his strings.
Wait, do you think is the woman the mother?
Do you think? Come on, brother.
It's the woman.
Do you think that these ideas that are coming out of the manosphere, because they're all natural and organic? You haven't thought. I'm sorry, brother. We haven't thought an original thought since we got here, and I can go back further than that. This is mass manipulation. Who pulling your strings? Who putting the idea that you have in your mind? If you're dealing with a wise scientist of evil, you're dealing with a person that creates a drug. He tells you that you take this drug, one of the side effects is suicide. So he knows that he can chemically affect your thinking. He can affect your thinking biologically. The chemistry of your mind. But not only that, he can influence your thinking by the culture. Mm-hmm. So when I was growing up listening to the Too Short, you think Too Short wasn't influencing my thinking? The Ghetto Boys wasn't influencing my thinking? Well, then it has to be understood. You listening to Rick Ross? You think Rick Ross and his lyrics ain't influencing your thinking? He's selling more albums than buying the block. Books or whatever he got going on, right? They're influencing our thinking and the idea, and they're able to manipulate and use our pain and our frustration against us. We gotta wake up. We gotta wake up because we're not just dealing with our opinion on our women. We're dealing with the future of our people. So these ideas that we're permeating, we're putting out into the atmosphere, these ideas are being picked up by the younger generation. So if you are saying what you're saying about the woman without any balance, without any understanding, without any depth, well, here's a young child that's listening to you. So now he grows up with the idea and the thought in his mind that his woman is less. What is that going to produce? So no wonder you see the girl turn the boy down and he shoot her.
Yeah, can we talk about I think it's an epidemic. And this is happening back home too, right? What is going on with the violence? Now, there's always been violence, right? Those in certain spaces among Black men seem to feel that back in the day, 50s or 60s, when women were more submissive and, the grandmothers were in the home and we had this family unit, right? Things were a little bit better then. That's the conversations I've had. But there's always been violence, right? And I don't think certain spaces of these men understand that the Black woman has always had to deal with with violence. But I feel as though there's a scary uptick that's happening. And do you think it's as a result of all the things that we've talked about? So let's go back to the 50s and 60s where, part of our community seemed to think that was the ideal time for a Black family in America. And then let's trace that down to what's happening today. And then we're going to start wrapping it up.
Well, what happened in the 60s and the 70s one of the things that happened was the black exploitation flicks
Yeah.
and the glorifying of pimp culture and pimp mentality.
Mm.
So we went from being brothers and sisters to pimps and hoes.
Mm.
And how does a pimp keep a hoe in check? Excuse my language. And Rudy Ray Moore and Superfly and these pimpological figures became the idols for young black men.
Mm.
She get out of line, slap her in their mouth. And where grandma and grandpa had the same violence, but they may have kept it private. Now it's on the big screen. So now young black boys and young black girls in the 60s and 70s, they're watching these shows, laughing and taking it in and enjoying it, but they're learning how to handle one another. Now, take it to now. Take it to now. And you hear and you see what's on the I'm not familiar with all of the television shows and all, but from what I see, the lesson has grown and it's even more violent. So then in this atmosphere, the black woman, Malcolm said, the black woman from the Honorable Black Woman, he said that the black woman was the most disrespected, unprotected, and I say, I'm going to add devalued woman in the world. Well, that was in the 60s.
That's being argued against now because of the proposed access to money and position by some black women. There are spaces of frustration where black men are seeing where black women are being able to get closer access to that wealth and publicity. And so really being
again an illusion. Because the reality is not whether or not she has access to the wealth. The real reality is how do we see her? Her value is not determined by how much money she has. Her value is determined how I see you as a black woman. As a black man, how do I see you? That's your value. As a black woman, how do I see you? That's your value in this sense. So she can have all the money in the world, but if you still look at her as the VITCH, you still look at it. You still look at it in these type of degrading terminology. All the money in the world don't mean nothing because you don't value her. See, we gotta look. We have to look, in my humble opinion, we have to look deeper, because if we don't look deeper, we don't understand what happened from the 60s and 70s up until this point. So now I'll say these 2 points. I was talking to a brother, and he was telling me about an experience that he had. And he was asking a question to a group of young black men and older black men. And he asked them, if you see a woman on the street that's being beat, do you feel like it's your, I'm paraphrasing, do you feel like it's your duty to protect her? No. No. Overwhelmingly, no. Then he asked them, and they had all kind of reasons. I don't know what she did. I don't know. He said, well, if you see one of these brothers on this bus being attacked, do you think it's your duty to protect them? No question asked. Yes. This is a group of young black men, and older black men. All of them saying yes. Then he asked them, well, if you're in a relationship with your wife or your girl, and she gets a little out of hand or says something off the mark, do you think that you should slap her or beat her? Overwhelmingly, yes. These are black boys and black men in the same environment, same answer. Okay. I got a call this morning from a sister who had been assaulted. She was telling me the response of this man. And what alarmed me, and I said to her, I said, you know what? He doesn't see you as a human being. Now I want us to understand something. Why scientists are evil. There was a study done. And in this study, and I'm not throwing off on my sisters, I'm just telling you this study. They studied men's mind looking at women. I with little or no clothes on. And they said that the same sensories of the brain went off when looking at these women if the man was looking at a hammer.
Like an object?
Like an object. So now, here you got an environment where women are objects, objectified. The artists are telling you, like, you got a bad bill on your side. It's like having a nice car. R. Kelly made a song. He said, "You remind me of a Jeep, something like my car." This is the thought process that's being put in the minds of Black men. Even on the subconscious level, it's being hammered into your mind. So then when you see the woman, you don't see a human being. You don't see your second self. You don't see the feminine energy. You don't see God moving in the feminine. You see a thing. And you see a thing that's only valuable based on what it can do for you. And if it can't do anything for you, it don't have no value. So there is no reason why, it makes sense now that you would beat her, that you would kill her, that you get her, have a baby. If she don't kill a baby, you get rid of her. You don't stay there to take care of the child. All of these things that are happening. And I know it's not happening everywhere because I'm a Black man with all of my children. I've seen all my children born into the world. But we are the exception, not the rule. Because when you go into the Black community, particularly in the poor Black community, you don't see men present in the household. So we can't live in a fantasy. We have to live in a reality, because the reality is what is dominant. The reality is what we exist in. The reality is what we're living in. And if we are alive and well and we live in this type of reality, if we don't wake up to it, we won't change it. And if we don't change it, the future of our people is doomed. It's a reason why they're saying by 2030, they expect for Black people to be a permanent underclass, that our wealth growth will be at zero. These are scientists looking into the future. You looking at yesterday and can't see any further than tomorrow, and your enemy is looking 50, 60, 100 years down the line, determining where he wants you to be. And the way that he knows what direction you're going is by putting certain ideas and thoughts and cultural norms in your pathway. And the more you accept them, the more you go into the reality in the future that they plan for you, because you haven't planned for yourself. We have to stand up, be men, think for ourselves, think for our women, children, our babies, think for the future of our people and what it will be, determine our own direction, and make a reality separate from the reality that has destroyed us. That's what we have to do. And we got to take our woman with us. Lift her up, brother. Raise her up. No matter what condition she is in, come to her with love and honor and respect, and watch the condition change. Oh my
gosh, love. And this is my frustration, and then we're gonna wrap it up. This is my frustration with certain spaces, is that the vile comments, and this is why I try to explain to people the problem with Kevin Samuels, right? Somebody said that there's this guy that I listen to, and he says he doesn't have a problem with Kevin Samuels. He has a problem with the followers, because he said Kevin Samuels started off speaking to Black men. He started off speaking to men about empowering themselves and uplifting himself, and he said he only picked up numbers and popularity when it is couched in the language of misogyny. It's only until then, when he started talking about women, not the women in wholesome ways, when he started talking about women by pointing out their negative aspects
Can I say that?
in a very devalued way, that's when he blows up. Now, the man says because women were tapping in. Yeah, they were tapping in because you were talking about women in a certain way,
Well, let me say this before you wrap up. It's hate.
That's deep. That's painful and deep.
No, it's hate. See? And this is why, Black man, you can't, if you don't have love in you, you don't have God in you. And if you don't have God in you, you can't tap into your power and authority. Kevin Samuel tapped into a hatred The hatred of black women is old.
It's old.
It's old. Do you think that our colonizers or our slave masters taught us love for the black woman? So we've tapped into that hatred. And that's what he tapped into. He tapped into a hatred for black women. You may say, I don't hate black women. Oh, well, check yourself. Because I'm telling you, the reason you ain't got no power is because you don't love your woman. If you don't love your woman, you can't have God in you. If you don't have God in you, you can't connect to your divinity, and your divinity is the root of your power. Until you connect back to your divinity, develop love for yourself and your woman, you will forever be the slave for your oppressor. And not only will you forever be the slave of your oppressor, your children will be too. Mm-hmm.
So then what are the next steps? What's what should we be doing? Right? This is mostly about men tonight. We'll talk about the women's part, right? For the frustrated men, right? As a community, what do you think?
You gotta tap back into your divine self first.
How? I know how women are doing it.
Well, I'm gonna talk about men. I'm gonna talk about men. You gotta see, brother, you can't do it on your own. I know you think you can, but you gotta find a system. Whether that system is the Nation of Islam, Mayat, African spirituality, you gotta find a system that teaches you a knowledge of yourself. And there's many systems out there, but you gotta find an ancient system, a system that connects you back to yourself. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, if you find a religion that's not rooted in nature, it's not from God. So you gotta connect back to your spirituality. Then, brother, you got to do some form of prayer and meditation, right? You have to hone in that skill. Then you got to discipline yourself through fasting, right? What I'm giving you is a prescription for re-educating, repairing yourself.
And disconnect from
reality. You got to completely disconnect from the influences of this world.
Yep.
And these things: prayer, fasting, study, connecting back to a spiritual system, putting yourself in environments of balanced black men.
Yep.
Balance. Well, now if you think one, now how do you know it's balanced? Well, you're in an imbalanced place. In the place you're in, men don't have a healthy respect, love, and honor for women. And you're in an imbalanced place. You got to find a place where the men are balanced, because now, brothers, we have to become checkmates for each other.
Yep.
There was a brother that asked me a question. I'm not going to repeat what I said to him, but I put it on my page on what he felt like, or I told him what I felt like should happen to black men who want to put their hands on black women. And I meant that. But I'm saying you got to have an atmosphere of men who check us. We check each other when we are off to put us back on the path. So these are some of the things that has to be done. And there's much more that has to be done. But this is where we can start: prayer, study, fasting, connecting with a spiritual system that corrects us, and surrounding ourselves in a brotherhood of men who are trying to live a righteous life.
All right.
That makes sense?
Yeah. It makes sense. And I think what's even critical is that space and environment. For me, it's the disconnection, right? The cutting off of that inflow of just junk, just stuff.
Yeah.
And finding you in an environment and space and among men, as you said, that are more balanced, that can, that you can feed off of.
We should know more about the Dallas Cowboys than we know about our spirituality.
Yeah. But no, and that's the thing, right? Because many of us are cut off from Christianity, right? And I'm speaking to men. They've turned away frustrations with Christianity, but then also there's a space of not acknowledging our African self, that ancestry, right? So they're very much based on, okay, our origins are within the United States. And so I like the examples that you give of it's not really connected to that cultural element. If you feel as though that's not who you are, right? It's something that anyone can do, right? Separate yourself from, the influx of messiness that's being pushed towards us, right? Separate yourself from that. Find balanced spaces, and then prayer and fasting. I think that's very much any steps and practices that anybody can adopt. And I know that many of us are doing it. And I think in therapy, we didn't talk about therapy. I think therapy is so absolutely important. That is so important, and I can say that even personally, it's so difficult to get a Black man to even acknowledge and consider. Like, I've made a decision personally, like, look, if we have a conversation and you say you've been through stuff in life, you're not in any religious institution at all, right? You're not practicing anything spiritual, and you're not in therapy at all. Don't talk to me. Because how are we dealing with that stuff? So women, right? I think we should hold all the men in our lives, as we do for ourselves, but because this is the conversation we're having today, hold the men in our lives accountable in that sense, as in, brother, I love you, right? We've been through this together, right? I want to see you do this. I think that's something that we can do actively, at an individual level, right? To show the love that we have for each other. I know it will be difficult, right? But I think that is a step that men can take and should take visibly, to show that they really want to heal. Because you cannot tell me that you've experienced stuff and haven't done anything and you're good. Oh, I good. It's you. I good. You can't be good. You can't be good. So if you've been through stuff, do something. Woo, do something. All right. So I'm gonna wrap that up. Do you want to say anything about the LLC before we leave?
Please follow us, PHX LLC, Phoenix LLC, on all social media platforms. Go to thephxllc.org for our webpage. Look at the work that we're doing. Join the work that we're doing. Volunteer from everything from agricultural to business development to health. Matter of fact, we have a health ministry, but we have an event coming up this Thursday, how to overcome chronic illnesses. So just check out the work. Follow me, Brother Tremikus, on all social media platforms. I'll share that with you, and just support our work. We have a new headquarters that we're opening up on the south side of Phoenix, and we welcome the community to be a part of that. And just look forward to our work. We'll have our micro school up and running. Just so much work that we're doing for the community. Support the Phoenix LLC, join the Phoenix LLC. And if you're not in Phoenix, you can have a Detroit LLC, an Atlanta LLC, right? Excuse me, you can have an LLC wherever you are, right? And we can show you how to do the work that we're doing here everywhere you are. Black people have to unite regardless of religion, regardless of social, economic, or educational status. We have to unite around the idea that our people need help and need to be uplifted, and we have to work, do the work for ourselves to make that a reality.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you for having me on the show.
You are welcome. You're welcome. So we've been on for an hour, 48 minutes.
Oh, wow. A short show.
But I didn't expect anything less. Like, I knew it would be long. So I do thank everyone. If you're able to stay on for the entirety of the time, really do appreciate all the comments. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Sister Arian. Oh, everybody, Sister Arian Nicole, that's his wife. She's there if you see the name. Barry and
got the hip hop, tiny death style hip hop coming at Grassroots.
When is that starting?
I think it's going to be at the end of September. So the flyer be coming. I think it's going to be the last Friday of September.
Okay. All right. So we have a lot of great things happening within the Phoenix LLC. This is the organization that I've called home, my second family, for a few years now. So outside of all the other stuff that I do, this is also what I'm a part of. So they're on supporting. Appreciate the love and support. And if anybody is interested, follow Brother Tremikus Muhammad, and he'll be happy to follow up with you because we're doing some really great things in this in Phoenix. All right, so we're there for tonight. If anybody has, I will be getting phone calls after this conversation. Woo! All right. Anyway, so till next time, and I think the next one should be on femininity on the Black woman. So I'll plan that out for next time. So I appreciate everyone and have a good evening and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.